There are two new premium tanks coming to World of Tanks console, and today we are going to look at both of them alongside all of the update news for tomorrow when the update, a new update for the week, comes out. So hopefully it'll be an interesting one and we'll get into all of the news that you need to know for this week. So starting off with the Metal Fest Act 2 starring Megadeth premium tanks, which you may have already seen, but these are essentially the M67 and the P.S.L.A.P Leclerc Ares prototype. So this is the prototype to the Leclerc, which is the French tank in Cold War. We'll be seeing a World War II tank as well as a Cold War tank. So it's good for everyone, which is always nice to see. But starting off, we have the M67, which is in fact what you're seeing on all of the kind of season pass kind of things where we're seeing that the flamethrower is being used on a pattern variant, and this is no different. This is the actual flamethrower tank that's coming into the game, and so in addition to having the longest ranging flamethrower currently available, which can reach 262 meters, which is apparently balanced, the soldiers on M67's flame shells also give you incredible damage values to deploy in battle. Both flame and heat/AP shells are fired from the main gun, meaning the turret's full rotation is all yours to use when unleashing hell. That's what Wargaming have to say about it, but we can have a look at the statistics of the vehicle. The Wargaming have provided them to see exactly how this tank is probably going to play and the armor model that we do have alongside what tier it is, because, you know, that's one of the biggest factors for this tank. So first thing we do have, it does play up to tier 10, but I believe that this tank is a tier 8. It doesn't actually tell you, I don't believe, so, you know, that's always good. But essentially what it is a tank that can deal 240 damage per shell when you're using the actual main gun, with decent penetration on your standard, slightly less on the premium, or HE as they like to call it, and then you get 100 pen on your flamethrower, which is kind of nice. So you have the option to choose which one you want, and of course the flame shells will have that reduced reload, which are essentially your flamethrower, and your heat rounds/AP shells are your other rounds that you have in the tank. So the first round type, rather than having the kind of multi-turret flamethrower that we have on some of the other tanks, it's in fact just comes out the main gun. So this is interesting. It's kind of a novel, I believe, and should be quite an interesting one to see. So the main gun is actually the flamethrower, as opposed to having some weird side area or kind of hull type flamethrower like we see with the Churchill OK. So in terms of statistics of the vehicle, you get a 50% silver bonus, which is nice, which is in line with all of the other tier 8 premiums. You get 1450 hit points, which is okay / on the higher side for a medium tank / you know, it's kind of probably going to be more like a kind of a heavy hybrid sort of thing that you'll see in the game, and that's really what this tank is going to be, even though it has a huge cupola, which is going to be a massive problem for most people. They are usually pretty bad, and I'm sure when we look at the armor viewer you can see it does indeed have the cupola problem, which all of the American mediums and kind of heavy tanks do have anyway. So yeah, you're going to be getting penned through here. The armor actually seems to look okay, but then again, you never know. It might just be that this is the thickest part of armor, even if it is only 150mm thick. So it might be an M60 sort of vehicle where you just get penned through the turret regardless of even that being the strongest point. But either way, what else do we have? Well, it's 51 kilometers an hour top speed limit is actually pretty decent. You're going to be able to maintain that speed. It's quite nice, and the 7.5 power to weight ratio there or thereabouts is pretty good as well, so keeping up to that top speed is going to be decent. So it should be an interesting one for sure, and we'll be doing a video on this vehicle. And one of the more interesting points again on this tank is that it gets 12 degrees of gun depression, which is one of the highest in the game, and that is certainly something that can't be used on a lot of vehicles, and it's not actually even a hydropneumatic suspension like you'd see with something like the UDES 1516 or the STRV line, that sort of thing. It's in fact something completely different, or even the STB1 line has that hydropneumatic suspension. So this having 12 degrees of flat gun depression, pretty nice indeed, and of course that's going to be very, very good. Of course, you then have the heat rounds having 1200 meters per second shell velocity, so they're going to be the better round. They also have a higher penetration, as you'd expect. But yeah, it might be an expensive one to play, this premium tank, to make work, but the 240 alpha on all of the variants of these tanks are actually quite nice, even if they don't tend to be that overpowered, and I'm not expecting this one to be particularly too overpowered either, since you look at things like the M48A2 or some of the other tier 8 premiums that are the similar sort of tank, something like a Legion 59 pattern. It's going to be somewhat in that region. Maybe this has slightly more armor, since Wargaming say you can go hold down with this thing or use the DPM of the tank to deal more damage, even though the damage per minute of this vehicle is not particularly insane, having 1920, although it says it can do 6234. Yeah, that's if you pen everything though. That's the main issue, I think. But either way, 6,200 damage per minute, if you can manage to get behind something, would be very nice. But it's very situational, these flamethrowers, and I don't think they're that overpowered. View range is decent. I think this tank is going to be an okay one for the game, and hopefully not overpowered. Let me know what you guys think, because it's always interesting to see your thoughts on what this tank is going to be like. Obviously, disregard anything I say if you don't agree, and just give me your own thoughts. Do you think this tank is going to be good? Is it too bad? Or is it going to be actually overpowered in the game? Moving on now, because we do have the Cold War tank, which actually looks quite interesting for those of you that aren't kind of keeping up to date with the latest news. It is essentially a Era 3 heavy tank for the French line, and it has the kind of P.S.L.A.P motto on it, or whatever you want to call it. It's called the P.S.L.A.P, and essentially the P.S.L.A.P has a 50% silver bonus, so pretty weak in terms of having the higher silver bonus in Cold War, but it's still decent. I mean, you're going to make a ton of credits with this thing, but moving on then, we have the hit points 3,600, pretty decent. Engine power 1,500 horsepower, which puts the power to weight ratio at 27, which is pretty good. I mean, it's going to be able to get up to top speed quite nicely, and that top speed is quite nice indeed, being 72 kilometers an hour. So you're going to be up there with the faster tanks in Cold War with this one. You have a hull and turret traverse of about 84 degrees a second, which is pretty decent as well. 8 degrees of gun depression, 20 degrees of elevation, so you're not going to really have any problems in that regard. 633 pen or 700 with the premium, and 550 damage with both of those rounds. And of course you could load HE or the heat rounds, which have less pen than both of them and deal less damage. Yeah, I don't know why you'd fire that, but it's there for those of you that are interested. Aim time at 2.2 seconds, accuracy is very good as well, and reload 7.1 seconds with a 4,650 base damage per minute, which is pretty good, and I think this tank is going to be a nice one indeed. It doesn't get an autoloader from what I can see, and so it's just going to be purely a tank that is focusing around using the speed, mobility, and kind of being that MBT for the French line, like you see with the Leclerc in the game. So yeah, very interested to see how these tanks play. We'll be doing reviews of both of these tanks this week, alongside some of the reviews of some of the other tanks that we've been missing out on recently on the channel. I had to take a break. I think I was just getting a little bit burnt out, and we're also trying to provide some really good guides for you guys as well, alongside which I'm trying to work on in the background, where we're really putting in as much effort as possible. So yeah, delaying the daily uploads, at least for the last couple of weeks, has probably been beneficial for you guys. Hopefully, fingers crossed you like them, and we'll move on. Anyway, moving on from this video, we then have the commanders, which we have on the store bundles. I mean, I'm not going to watch the YouTube video. It is basically just showcasing off all of the commanders. But essentially what we have is all of the members of the band Megadeth, which you can pick up in the game, which is cool. I mean, it's up to you whether you want to spend your money on picking these ones up. But of course, I'm sure that the band members themselves would have got a payout from having the collaboration with Wargaming. I don't know if that's the case, but I'm pretty sure they would have done. And of course, yeah, you can support your kind of band if you like them. But if you don't, we also have a 3D hero commander, which is Vic Rattlehead, which is the band's mascot. So you can actually get this in the game at the end of the battle if you want. But, you know, it's up to you whether you want to get yourself a skeleton dressed in an army uniform. But it's there for you. Either way, if you want to pick up both of those tanks that we've just talked about and all of the commanders as well as the 3D commander, it's going to cost you 25,000 gold, which is about £70, which, considering that they sell a hell of a lot more, a hell of a lot less stuff and less premiums for a lot more with some of the other promotions that they've done in the past, it's not the worst price for both of these tanks, but at the same time it is still very expensive. And would I recommend it, given the fact that these two tanks probably going to be very much similar to what you can purchase in the tech trees, except the M67 having a flamethrower? I don't know. The Soldier On bundle, you can just pick up the M67 medium for 10,700 gold, which is quite expensive. I mean, 40 quid probably, or £35 for that one. Or the Leclerc you can pick up for 14,400 gold, which yet again is pretty expensive. I mean, that's looking on $50 or £50 or something like that. So very expensive. And the commanders themselves, 7,600 for a couple of commanders. Yeah, pretty pricey. But at the end of the day, it's up to you whether you want to actually get these, and if you think they're cool, then go ahead. Don't worry about whether I think that they're overpriced for the value in terms of the gameplay aspect of the vehicles and the commanders, but it's up to you whether you like the look of them, which is probably more so, and you know, if you enjoy playing with them, then that's the biggest thing, because yeah, sometimes going for all of these meta tanks and the best tanks in the game are not necessarily the funnest thing for your own experience, and sometimes you have to play things that you do actually think that you'll enjoy as opposed to just be really, really overpowered in or have the best possible games that you can have, which makes World of Tanks a hell of a lot more fun than it usually is. Anyway, moving swiftly off from this, we also then have the Metal Fest Act 2 starring Megadeth challenge, and this is where you can pick yourself up the HMH Chrysler K, which is the tier 8 German American premium tank, and essentially what this is a earn operation where you have to get a load of points. The more points that you collect, the faster you'll get towards the actual tank itself, which you need 350 points to be able to unlock. How do you get the points? You have to place in the top 6 minimum to be able to get some decent amount of extra points. And if you deal 1,500 or more damage in any number of battles, you get 1 point. You get 3 points if you come in the top 3 in your team by XP, and if you get 2 points if you come in the top 6 XP earners on your team in a battle. So essentially, having to come within the top 6 in your games or deal 1,500 damage is going to get you there as fast as possible. So I would recommend playing some of the higher tier vehicles, or alternatively, if you can consistently come in the top 6 in lower tiers, then go be my guest and give it a go. But 350 points, not too bad. It's about 100 games, which over the course of 1 week, or actually I lie, it's only 4 days. Yeah, okay, Wargaming. Then yeah, might be a little bit more difficult to be able to complete, or 5 days or something like that. But either way, hopefully you guys can do it. It's about 20 points a day, which I think is doable. I mean, for a lot of people, if you play a decent amount, you know, an hour or 2 a day, it's going to get you this actually done. So yeah, I mean, it's a free tier 8. If you don't get it, you don't get it. The Chrysler K isn't that overpowered on console, so don't worry about it if you can't actually complete it. I would just, you know, it is what it is. Either way, moving on, we then have 2 mercenary contracts available as well, which I thought I'd cover because, you know, mercenary tanks, given the fact that some of them are going out of the contract length or whatever they're expiring, we've got 2 new ones, which is the Stinger and the Cruncher. And the first contract that we do have is then the Stinger, which is a really interesting vehicle. It's a tier 6 light tank that has the ability to deal quite a bit of damage, although it does suffer in penetration, so you have to fire a bit of premium. It doesn't get a silver bonus, it's not particularly fun in that regard, but you know, you're fairly fast, you've got decent mobility, and you've also got the ability to, you know, spot for your team as well. So this makes this tank quite nice. It's a hybrid between an AMX 1375 sort of vehicle and then a Chaffee, or at least the T37, that sort of thing. And it makes the tank quite nice. I've really enjoyed playing this one over the period of time that I've had it, and I'd highly recommend you guys go out and get yourself the Stinger at some point, but you know, just, you know, weigh it up against some of the other tanks that you can get. It will cost a ton of XP to be able to pick up. I think you need about 500,000 XP, I want to say, or maybe not actually. Yeah, you need about 250 to 300,000 XP, which is about 300 games for the average player, I think. So yeah, not a bad one, but yeah, it's going to take a while for you to get it, and of course you only have 1 month to be able to do it. So yeah, hopefully you guys can get this one and enjoy playing the Stinger. Or alternatively, we've got the Cruncher, which is not so much of an interesting one. I'm not a massive fan of the Cruncher, but this one's going to take a lot longer, which is why they've given you longer to complete it. But essentially, the Cruncher is a tier 8 medium tank that has this weird spaced armor on the turret, and it has this TVP sort of esque hull, or at least gun, and then a kind of pattern variant hull armor. So yeah, it's an interesting one for sure, but it's not very overpowered. It's a good tank nonetheless, and I think most people would enjoy playing it. It just, yeah, I mean, I'm not a massive fan of it, and I think people probably would most likely join me in that statement who have played this vehicle in the past. But either way, Cruncher and the Stinger both available. My preference would be to get the Stinger, but it's up to you what you want to get and how you think you're going to fare in both of the tanks. But other than that, we then have the final update news, which is, of course, what Wargaming always say to us at the end of their streams, which is the Q&A, and there's quite a bit to go through today. So let's have a look. Is it possible in control mode, if you sit on the base for X amount of seconds, your ammo resupplies? This is very interesting, but we worry that when players are capturing a base, they would be getting resupplied at the same time, so we could possibly add other ways to do this, like maybe a pickup somewhere around the map. This would be a great idea. I think that this would be nice to have in the game personally, and it gives it something a bit extra to just having the cap circles there or thereabouts on random places in the map, and so, you know, you have to rotate around to get more ammo and stuff like that. I think it would be cool. Could there be some challenges for control mode? Yes, we've been talking about, and we know players want this. Also, possibly allowing contracts to be completed in control mode. We need to be careful and not allow farming of contracts, but we will see about specific changes for control mode that might give you season points for it. So that's absolutely fine. Italian Lion, when it's not in our schedule yet, and I'm not aware of any development going on for it right now, so it could be sometime next year. So yeah, quite a while till we get the Italian Lion. The old round minimap had a grey border, and it showed vehicles which were far away. Could you possibly add that back, please? Yes, we do understand that right now it can be a bit confusing, so it's not very clear. And I will follow up with the UI team to see if there's a solution we can think of on that front. And thanks for bringing it to one's attention, which is okay. I mean, I never really used the compass map. I thought it was terrible. And at the end of the day, yeah, it was awful. So yeah, avoid using the compass map, please, if you're watching this, because it literally gives you no information. And yeah, I mean, if you can't tell that there's an enemy near you and that you have to be in the compass mode to actually see that there's an enemy near you, you should probably pay more attention to the minimap in the first place, as having the compass is probably not going to help you anyway, because you wouldn't have seen him. But can the Swedish mediums get some love? Our lead vehicle designer is tackled this one. He took a look at the data, and the number says says almost all of the medium tanks are doing good, and there's no current plans to improve them. I actually think this is a correct statement. I think the Swedish mediums are very good in general. I really enjoy them, and I think they're in a good place. I don't think they need to be buffed. I don't think they need to be nerfed at all. Can we please get some HUD customization, like the ability to increase the minimap side, show tank names on the minimap, and add the last known location on the minimap? Anything about customization on the HUD is very expensive UI task in terms of performance and the workload. So essentially, they're saying it's going to be very, very hard for them to actually develop this. It doesn't make them any money, which is probably a big thing, considering that it takes a while to actually develop it, and obviously doesn't make them any money. Yeah, they're probably not going to do this, and yeah, it's a shame, but it is what it is, unfortunately, and it's certainly something we can look into. But if we do increase the minimap size, we then have to look at the consumables and ammo will need to be moved. It's definitely something we could figure out. The last known location something is something that PC has, and it's something we've been thinking about and how we could best go at implementing this. It would be cool to have this in the game, but yeah, I can understand it might take a while for them to do it. Is it possible for you to add the Italian flag from World War II, as currently we only have the modern flag? It seems like a simple enough cosmetic addition to the game, and we will talk to the team to see if they can get it added. Can you have a look at the buffing, the penetration of Eastern Alliance Object 120? Right now it's performing very well, so no plans to update it at this time. Can we have more special camouflages dedicated to Cold War tanks? So yep, they said that they could do it, but I know there's already some camouflage and skins. So yeah, there's not particularly anything that they're going to budge on here, and I'm sure that they've already got some in the works. Can we test a premium vehicle before we buy it? Possibly. There has been some debate about this. I mean, we had a similar question last week about renting tanks. It's on our minds, and we tried to figure out a good approach to it. And if not a rental system, we've also debated about having a shooting range where you can test out different tanks, which would be kind of cool. And you can see what sort of thing the tank can do. Even if it isn't in the live game, you could just go and try out a tank in a testing range. Yeah, I think that would be, you know, it's not amazing for the player who wants to test out whether it's good in the game, but at the same time, you know, the wargaming don't want to just give you the tank to play for, you know, 20 or 30 games and then they never actually sell any of the tanks because people just play 20 or 30 games in the rental and then you never get to play it. Maybe they could do some sort of way of, you know, playing, you have one rental available for a month or one rental available every 2 weeks or something like that. And then, you know, you can use that on whatever tank you want to try for 10 games or something like that, just as a something for people to try out new tanks and see whether they like them. Can we potentially get a premium mercenary tank contract? We have started bringing in other premium tanks, so contracts will continue to support mercenary and premium tanks as we go forward. That's cool. Can we change voice chat settings to be on by default to encourage communication in-game? I know it's been this way for a while, but this was a request that came from players. Turning off the voices of other players in the team was a better quality of life improvement, but if this is something the community want re-enabling, then we can certainly consider it. In my opinion, it's annoying to just have this automatically turned on, to be honest with you. Like hearing people like screaming down the mic, just being offensive in general ways. And it's just something that I don't personally want to see, but that's just me. And of course, you know, sometimes it will catch you off guard. You know, you're just trying to chill and there's someone screaming about how, you know, you're an absolute beep, 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 whilst they also do 0 damage in the game. But either way, you know, apparently some people want that back in the game. Certainly, if you want to actually communicate with your teammates and you think it's going to be worth it, then yeah, just turn it on yourself. I don't think that everyone should have to listen to you know, Dave from down the road who's raging at everyone in the game because, you know, he got taken out in his light tank in the first 20 seconds of the game where he went off a cliff. But you know, that's it. can we get an event mode for a weekend that's just in random tanks without premium tanks and arty? That's an interesting idea, like a roulette game mode. We can discuss this with the team. I'd also like to throw it out there, what about an arty only game mode? That would actually be really cool just to try out as like a limited time of mode. Not like a constant thing, but just like an artillery only kind of game that you can play and try it out as like a, you know, a 3-day event or something like that. As like a Halloween, like, oh, the nightmare has unfolded where artillery are the only things you can play. That would be cool. But yeah, whether we'll see that, I have no idea. It'd be cool to see it though. And I think limited time kind of events are actually kind of cool. I think they bring something, they make you want to play, they want to try it out. And I feel like World of Tanks console have never really got them right. I feel like they don't give them any rewards. They don't give you any incentive to play them really. And it's kind of just like, here you go, here's the Halloween event mode. It's there if you want to play it. 90% or 95% of people never play it, or play one game and then that's it. They've kind of got the gist of it. There's no real incentive to play it. It's not like you get any bonuses from it. And yeah, I mean, I'd like to see them bring in challenges for event modes when they do come out, like the Christmas events, the Halloween events, which will be coming up soon as well in November. Yeah, so hopefully we'll be seeing some interesting stuff. And yeah, I think more event modes would be good, but bring in challenges and exclusive stuff that you can get from actually playing the mode and make the modes pretty decent at the same time. So moving on, do you have any plans for the return of the iconic map Pacific Island? Right now, no, it's not on the schedule and it is a small map and it wasn't very well received when we ran the survey years ago. Yeah, this map was awful. In my opinion, it was a tiny map that essentially if you weren't a heavy tank, you could just go and, you know, throw yourself in the bin or in the water. And they made it even worse when they brought out a weather variant where you could not actually see anyone, because even in a tier 10 tank, you had tier 1 view range, which is just, yeah, awful. And you had Waffle E100s when they were overpowered back in the day, when they had the 6-round 750 damage shells, or 4-round even, and 6-round 550 damage, and they would just sit in the middle of an open area, literally sat unspotted, and just as soon as someone gets spotted, you know, 3,000 damage done, and they go home. But yeah, hopefully no more weather variants. As much as they were interesting, maybe bring them in as like an event or like a different mode where you could try out weather variants. I hated them when they were in the random queue. Can you extend the map tracking to the last 4 played so we don't have the same map all the time? We already do our best to prevent players seeing back-to-back maps, and having the last 2 tracked is already doing a good job, I think. We get a lot of players saying they're not seeing enough maps in rotation, and adding more history will make that even worse, so they're not going to do that. Can you add a permanent option to stop the paging in the garage? I just want to see the tank stats. We did add the button to pause the paging. I do understand that you prefer to see the tank stats, but there's also players that want to see challenges. We went to make sure that's still available for them, and it's something we have to talk about to our user experience and UI team about how to address this. That's fine. I don't think there's any problems. And can you please bring back 2D commanders, or add the option to hide 3D commanders? 2D commanders do come back from time to time, but they will not be added back to the barracks for purchase. We are out of inputs on the controller in the garage, but we did think about putting something in the garage, options to enable players to hide 3D commanders. That would be awesome. I think that's good. And that concludes all of the Q&As. Let me know what you think about all of this, and of course the new event and game modes and stuff that we're going to be seeing, and the control game mode that we had, and the proposed changes that Wargaming are going to do, and of course the 2 new premium tanks that we'll be seeing in the form of the P.S.L.A.P Ares prototype and the M67. Let me know in the comment section down below. Hopefully you've been enjoying it, and yeah, if you have any questions, let me know as well, and I'll see you hopefully tomorrow in the review of one of these 2 tanks, and I'll see you there. Goodbye.